Hello, I'm Lisa Jaworski. Thanks for joining me on Learning for Love, Lessons for Life. I'm really excited for today's show. We are talking about how there's more to leisure than meets the eye. And of course, this is especially special for me because of my background in therapeutic recreation. So I'm thrilled to have two guests with me today who can speak very personally about this subject and also provide some professional expertise as well. So I'm going to have Dr. Jennie Wells join us in a little while. And first, to start us off, we have Roy Forget, and I'm really looking forward to speaking with Roy. Thank you for joining me today, Roy.
My pleasure. Any way I can help.
I appreciate that. So the whole purpose of this show is, and I know that there's kind of some confusion on why would you want me on this show, but the reason is because even people my age, as you enter a stage where you that's the wrong word, but you're trying to care for other people, whether it be children and or parents, as well as in your professional roles. It's hard sometimes to find time to care for yourself. And so the reason this is important to me is because I want to help people who are in those kind of caregiving roles or figuring out, how do I find time for myself in order to be the best me I can be to take care of the ones I love. So I reached out to you because I've heard that you are one inspirational human being, and where you're at in life right now, I think speaks to what a wonderful man you are and how much you've accomplished. So I actually wondered if you could start just by sharing a little bit about how you can relate to maybe some of those pieces like I'm talking about being, a parent and in a professional role and what life looked like maybe around my age.
Yes. I spent 40 years in the military.
Wow.
And I retired here in London. And I'm the father of a son who passed away and two daughters. And they're a big support in my life. They really helped me a lot. Because 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with dementia.
Okay.
And I can no longer drive. And I can no longer do some of the things that I used to do, unsupervised, that is.
Right.
And so my life has taken on a whole new meaning. And things I took for granted before, they're very special now. And things that were important before, well, they're just not as important today.
Do you have examples of that, Roy? I think that's such a powerful statement that you just said. What would you say is important to you now that maybe that you took for granted earlier on?
Well, my children, they're both adults now, and I've been blessed with a grandson and a granddaughter. And they mean the world to me. I see in them things that I took for granted before with my daughters when they were little. Like every minute I spend with them, I cherish that moment, and it's just so uplifting, and they mean the world. And yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I think sometimes we do. Take for granted the people that we love in our lives and how important it is to nurture those relationships. The time goes by pretty fast, doesn't it? I'm starting to realize.
It does. And the important thing that's no longer important anymore, we were talking about that a minute ago, is when I was younger, my life was on my career and my ambitions and
right.
Being successful and earning money and having all the toys, and those things are just material things now. I see the value and the richness in the everyday things.
Yeah.
Those are the things like I don't take for granted anymore.
I love it.
And I feel I'm richer in memories that I'm creating with my children, my grandchildren, the family atmosphere.
Yeah.
That means more to me than anything else on earth.
Wow. Yeah, and you've mentioned to me how how your family is so supportive, and how your
Yeah.
daughter and everybody around you, it sounds like, really comes together to
Yeah.
support each other and love each other no matter what. And
Yes.
I do remember you mentioning to me, I hope you can kind of um, help me out with this that we talked about, but you mentioned, I think, driving with your daughter, and you had a conversation about, I don't want to bother you too much, and I don't want you to have
Oh,
to
yeah.
drive me. Does that ring a bell? Can you talk
Yes.
more about that?
Since I can no longer drive, my wife is working still, so my daughter will pick me up and she'll say, "Come on, Dad, we'll go get some groceries, or we'll go out for lunch, or we'll do whatever." And sometimes I feel like I'm a burden to her, like she's my taxi driver, and I don't want her to feel like that. And I mentioned that, and she stopped the car and she looked at me and she said, "I don't feel that way." She said, "I think I'm spending quality time with my dad." She said there was many nights I was closing up McDonald's at 12:30, 1 o'clock, and you had to get up at 5 the next morning, but you never said a word or complained. She said, "Now I'm giving back what I received from you." Kind of warmed my heart. Uh,
Warms my heart. I just had to get you to share that. It's such a, I think it's such a good message for us, that we can see things in so many different ways. And the fact that the mindset for her is, this is valuable time. And sometimes, again, like you were mentioning, I think we take for granted those times that we have together, and we could see
yeah,
it more on just having precious treasured time together versus, this is, I can't believe I have another thing in my day that I have to do, if it's just
yeah.
driving even. Roy, the next question I actually have is really from what you just said. And you mentioned to me how you didn't necessarily do activities and leisure things in your earlier years, but now you are. And I
Yeah.
wonder if you could remind me, as well as everybody listening, on why that is. How did that come to be that now you're really engaged in certain activities?
Well, how that came about is, when I was younger, I didn't really have any hobbies because my time was taken up with my career and other things, and I didn't have time for hobbies. And then, when I retired, around the time I retired, um, I was diagnosed with dementia, as I mentioned earlier,
Hmm.
and I was in touch with the Alzheimer's Society, who were a big help. And the social worker there told me, he asked me if I had hobbies. I said no. And he said, "What you should do is take up 3 things that you've never done before.
Hmm.
And that's going to challenge you and exercise your brain and keep you focused. Because one of my problems is my mind drifts all over the place. I have trouble staying on topic."
Right.
So I was a member of the Hamilton Roads Senior Center,
Yeah.
and there I saw the different programs they have, and I took up wood burning,
Wow.
and now I can now play the ukulele, and I took up guitar,
Oh, holy
and
cow.
I
You
started
sound busier than most people I know.
and I'm starting watercolor paintings. So
Wow.
now I'm never bored. I always have something to do. So I'm not, you know, at a point there where I'm just sitting in the window watching the world go by. As I mentioned earlier on, I am right now, but I don't do this because I'm so busy.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't have time to sit in the poor me's. So I take
Right.
each day